Hello, Bryan here, and thank you for tuning in to episode 5 of my recruiting guide for 2020 to 2021. Today, we're going to be moving away from networking and into resumes. That is, how to craft Rockstar resumes that will stand out from the crowd. As always, if you're looking for more resources beyond this video, feel free to contact me on Instagram, LinkedIn, or by email, and of course check out my Substack, which is my personal newsletter. My Substack basically is my YouTube channel, but in a more written format. That's advice on everything from college to post-college, as well as internships and full-time jobs. You can see my past works on authentic networking. By the time you see this video, I'll also have uploaded a guide on Rockstar resumes, which is basically the content of today's video. You could also type in bryan.yuan.wang to reach my Substack, in addition to finding the link on my channel description. And of course, on my YouTube channel, in my videos, in the description below, you can take a look at the resources I posted there. I will always post my slides, and that will be accessed by a bit.ly link, and it will cover topics from networking to resumes corresponding to the video that I'm covering. These slides are presented in a more visual format. And in my pinned comment section, you could look at these same resources. I'll always include them for more visibility and accessibility, and you can check them out whenever you want, however you want. So, with that said, let's jump straight into it. Today's video on resumes will be broken up into 5 distinct sections. First, what is a resume and why is it important? 2, getting started. So this is really a section for if you've never written a resume before, what do you need, what are the building blocks? But if you already have a resume and you're working on your 2nd, 3rd, 10th, 100th iteration, then you could go ahead and skip this section. Unless you want to know a little bit more about the design principles that kind of goes into the building blocks of a resume. 3rd, a formula for resume building and how to structure bullet point by bullet point. 4th, guidelines and best practices. And 5th and finally, my concluding thoughts. So with that said, what exactly is a resume? At the end of the day, recruiters and employers will spend anywhere from 10 seconds to only 1 minute actually looking at your resume. Remember the example I gave in my former video on authentic networking, where you're applying to a job for Google. Well, so are 3 million other applicants. And on average, only 7,000 of those applicants will actually get a full-time job and or internship at Google. That's a 1 in 428 odds. Very slim. And at the end of the day, if you don't have a referral, it's quite hard to get your foot in the door. But obviously, networking is not always possible. You know, as students or as postgrads, our time and resources are strapped. And when you're applying to 10 plus, 100 plus companies, it's kind of hard to network with 10 plus, 100 plus individuals who are willing enough and like you enough to actually give you a referral. So in cases like these, how do you stand out? Because at the end of the day, if they only spend 10 seconds to 1 minute actually looking at your resume, it better be darn good enough to catch their eye and capture their attention. Now, disclaimer. This video won't get too much into the design principles of a resume. How should you design your resume? What colors? What fonts should you use? That won't be the main focus of today's video. Today, I'll be focusing more on content and how you can make your content eye-catching and eye-popping. But if you want to check out more resources on how to make your resume more aesthetically pleasing, I've included some links in the description below, as well as in my pinned comment. And let me know in the comment section below if this is an area you'd want to learn more about. I have a lot of friends who are working in design, and I'd love to have them on as guests to kind of walk us through how we could best design our resume. But with that said, let's move a bit more into the content. In a resume, strong content is descriptive and qualified, rather than generic and vague. What does this mean? Well, I'll give you an example. Let's say that I've worked at the Daily Californian, which is UC Berkeley's independent student-owned publication. And let's say that my position was experiential marketing manager, and in my bullet point I said, helped plan events for local students. Well, this is quite vague. What does planning mean? What are the events and who are these local students? It's also generic because I said helped plan. Anybody can help plan something. Well, let's take a look at the descriptive qualified statement. In the same position, now I'm going to reorient my words and say launched inaugural journalism conference for 100 plus local high school students. And I also put down generated $1,000 plus in revenue on a $100 sub budget, beating initial profit estimates by 50% set by the board of alumni. So you can see here that it's descriptive. We have numbers. I explain in very clear detail what it is I did and who I led. And I also made it qualified. So why is this such an accomplishment? Yes, I generated $1,000 in revenue, but what if my budget was $10,000? Then I've actually lost money. But by qualifying it and saying that we generated $1,000 in revenue on a budget tenth the size of that, clearly the event was quite effective. I also additionally put down beating profit estimates set by a board, so this is an objective entity. So again, I'm qualifying it and I'm making it descriptive through the use of numbers and quantitative data and information. The difference is that the first example is something anybody can do, but the second is very descriptive, it's very qualified, it's something only you can do. But you may be wondering, how exactly do I do this? Well, thankfully, there is a framework set in place that you can use to really structure your bullet point and resume thought process. The formula is as follows: action verb plus project plus result equals accomplishment. So here we begin with an action verb. You really want to avoid using passive verbs like helped, assisted with, helped plan. They don't show you as an initiator, they don't show you as a leader. It really shows you more as a follower, kind of passively following along with the flow. But an action verb demonstrates grit, initiative, creativity, passion, and all these other positive words that you want to be associated with when individuals and recruiters look at your resume. So begin with an action verb, like launched, followed up with the project in your experience. For instance, publication's first mobile app, and then end it with the result. So again, you want to use another action verb like increasing, elevating, or transforming. And then at this point in time, you want to get to the end result of what your project yielded. So here it was increasing user growth by 15% semester over semester and reaching 1,000 downloads in less than 2 weeks. So when you add the action verb, the project, and the result together, you get the accomplishment, which is launched publication's first mobile app, increasing user growth by 15% semester over semester, and reaching 1,000 plus downloads in less than 2 weeks. As you can see, the end result is accomplishment-based and not process-based. Remember, the recruiter is going to only be spending 10 seconds to 1 minute actually looking at your resume, so you need to get to the point really quickly and really concisely. And that means leading with the accomplishment. You can flesh it out more in your cover letter or in the interview, but with your resume, you can't really beat around the bush. You really got to get to the punchline as quickly as possible. On that note, if you're looking for a list of action verbs, you could definitely check out this list for inspiration. Over here, we have action verbs on management and leadership and communication, as well as technical action verbs and creative ones. So again, depending on the role and the project you're working on, you're definitely going to want to emphasize certain action verbs over others. Let's say that you were a UI, UX, or user interface or user experience intern at a tech startup. You definitely want to use more creative action verbs like prototyped, conceptualized, designed. But if you're working at a consulting firm over the summer, you're definitely going to want to use more management and leadership action verbs, as well as research and data analyst oriented ones. Up next, let's go into the guidelines and best practices. Building resumes is tough, whether it's building your very first one, if you've never even heard of the term, or whether you're screaming at your screen looking at the 100th iteration of your resume. It's tough. It really is. But hopefully with these guidelines and best practices, I can help streamline and make the process more efficient, effective, and, dare I say it, perhaps even more enjoyable. First, this is mostly for beginners, but I really recommend brainstorming your resume. So before you even begin sitting down and making your resume, I would start with a Google Docs or Word doc sheet and just list out and vomit all the projects, experiences, and skills you have. Literally anything and everything, put it down right now. This is really useful, and actually I'm going to explain in my next few guidelines and best practices why this step is really important, but I really recommend that you sit down and inventory all the things that you've ever done. Write descriptive phrases and bullet points using the formula I described before, and use it to kind of structure your thought process as you kind of inventory all your achievements, all your accomplishments, and all your projects and experiences. This will come in really handy, and I'll explain that in just a bit. The second best practice is tailoring your resume. So, unfortunately, you hate to hear it, you hate to see it, and it really be like that, but you cannot, and I repeat, you cannot use the same resume for every single job or internship you apply to. For every position and application you file, each and every single one needs a unique resume. And I know this sounds so awful, and it's going to be so much work. Trust me, I know better than most. But this is really one of the most important steps you can take. Remember that Google example? Imagine if you used the same resume template over and over and over again. You're using generic words, and even if you have descriptive bullet points, if it doesn't match the description of the job itself, it's going to look like a generic and vague resume, and they'll toss it into the trash. So with that said, look at the job and internship posting. Look at the language and the vocabulary they use. Look at the skills they're looking for, as well as the experiences they want to see in an ideal job candidate. Then co-opt and use this language and use this vocabulary as their own. Look at what skills and qualifications they're looking for. Look back at your master list where you inventoried all your projects, experiences, and skills. See where there's overlap and use that to build off on the ideal resume for the ideal candidate for that job and description. Use their language against them. Because at the end of the day, if a human recruiter is not looking at your resume, it's going to be an AI and a robot. And basically, the way they assess resumes is they literally look at the job description and they scan resumes for keywords that populate the job description itself. So the more your resume looks like the job description, the more likely the keywords will be tagged, and the more likely the AI will pass your resume on to an actual human recruiter for an actual human to look at. So remember when you were brainstorming all those bullet points and all those ideas and that master list of experiences, projects, and accomplishments you had? Now it's time to really tailor your resume by going on that and picking and choosing the ideal optimal experiences that align with the job description and using that to populate your resume. So you already did all the heavy lifting. Now it's time to really pick and choose what works best and what fits best for that specific job and for that specific internship. And the third and final best practice is very simple, but it's just avoiding common mistakes. For spelling and grammar errors, don't just double check, triple check, quadruple check. More importantly, get your friends, mentors, and other trusted individuals to really look at your resume. When you're looking at your resume for the 10th or 15th time, we get really lazy and we take shortcuts. We don't look at it as hard as we should, but with a fresh pair of eyes, but most preferably a mentor or someone, above us in age and experience, that will really help you tighten and clean up your resume. Second, common mistake, exporting via docx. That is not converting your resume from a Word document into a PDF. Please, please, please convert your resume and your cover letter, or really just any professional document, into a PDF. It's more universally readable and accessible. Honestly, even if you're using Google Docs, exporting it to docx kind of ruins the margins too, but converting to PDF really keeps it at its fidelity to its closest representation in the document. And then finally, being over one page, massive mistake. Please, your resume should only be one page, and whether you're applying to a startup or to a Fortune 500 company, to McKinsey or Goldman Sachs, to a student organization or consulting club on campus, definitely do not have your resume be over one page. That is one of the biggest cardinal sins, and I cannot stress enough, after having reviewed thousands of resumes myself, how many were over one page. It's a rookie mistake, but thankfully it's a very easy one to avoid. And so, as we near the end of this video, it's time for my concluding thoughts. Resumes are important, but again, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Networking is still, by far, your most important asset when it comes to recruiting. A strong relationship is enough to turn heads and get your application to the top of the recruiting stack. If you ever wonder why there are so many students who get that job or the internship despite not having as polished a resume, or despite not having, the relevant experiences and the skill set needed to actually succeed on the job, chances are it's probably because of networking or past relationships. While this in many ways can be problematic, the fact of the matter is, when you're a company like Google and you're looking at 3 million applications, you just don't have the time, the man or woman power, or the resources to really in-depth, by human eye, look at all 3 million resumes and cover letters. It's unfortunate, but we take heuristics and shortcuts to really get to who is the right fit and the best fit for the job. Networking and referrals is that shortcut, and it really helps Google assess these resumes, or not, and pick those that it thinks is the best fit for the job and or internship. Of course, networking is not always possible, and when it isn't, that's when your resume really has to shine and stand out. And hopefully this guide has given you the inspiration and the tools and the frameworks needed to begin thinking about your resume and how your resume can be built into a rockstar one, and get noticed even in a sea of a million other resumes. As always, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below, and of course, direct message me on Instagram or LinkedIn or via email if you want to have a more personal conversation. Thank you so much, and stay tuned for the next episode.